This is what they plan to do. What you saw today with the bump stock ban is Project 2025. That is the plan, what you just watched today. I'm going to get into it, not going to get into the legal side of things, just going to focus on how this is part of a larger plan to undermine our democratic institution. So, today, for those of you that don't know, the Supreme Court undid the ban on bump stocks. And they did this. Their claim was it's not explicitly written within the statute for this particular device, so we're going to go ahead and allow it to be legal. Like, Congress has to purposefully write this in, right? And they know that Congress is not going to react. So this is the plan. Undermine it, hand it back to the legislature so you can go, oh, look, well, we just handed it back to them to deal with, knowing that they won't. That's the plan. We saw it laid out in Project 2025, go after administrative law, go after the courts, and fill it with people that are yes men. I'm going to get into exactly what the law says in just a second, but this is an important component, is that Project 2025 is full-blown underway. Essentially, what they're attempting to do is Congress delegates power to an agency, and that agency oversees it, and there is what is called Chevron deference, the Chevron deference rule, which also is going to be heard by the Supreme Court. That's an important case that's coming up here. But Chevron deference is essentially when there is ambiguity within a particular statute for one of these agencies, okay, that the agency gets to interpret it in the most favorable way for the agency and for the public, right? The most favorable way for the public. What's going to create the best outcome? And in this instance, the law was written, and very clearly the agency then could take control and ban bump stocks, which they did, which has now been overturned. So they want to get rid of the Chevron deference rule so that anything that is not explicitly written in administrative law for these agencies to handle is gone. They can just throw it out, right? They can say, oh, we got to send it back to Congress. Otherwise, you can't do it. This is their plan for Project 2025. It's full-blown underway. This is what the law says in regards to this. The term, in reference to machine guns, the term also includes a frame or receiver of any such weapon, any part designed and intended solely and exclusively, or combination of parts designed and intended to use in converting a weapon into a machine gun. Sorry, small text. And the person posting this on Twitter, Aaron Fritschner, basically said, I don't know how the plain text of the law could possibly have been made clearer to ban a bump stock or any other device that does precisely what a bump stock does. Yeah, it's a bit of a scary day because if Donald Trump wins, they're going to stack the court. They're going to make sure that as many not stack the court. He's going to stack these agencies, and he's going to make sure that as many of these cases get to the Supreme Court before the Republicans come out of power so that they can go ahead and undermine democracy, right? Some of the things they're planning on doing is getting rid of definitions of DEI, targeting marginalized groups. They're going to try and freeze payments. They're going to try and mess with this in legal ways to hand it off to the courts for them to affirm it so that the Republicans can go into full regress, so that we can go back to the 1950s. It's a scary thing to think about, like the outcomes, because we're not even really sure of them, right? But largely speaking, the Republican Party does not believe that they can win legally or legitimately anymore. They know it. They know it's over for them. Their party is diminishing year after year. They have won one popular election in 34 years. They have lost 7 elections in a row. They didn't even win a majority of the vote in 2016. Their party continually, despite the polls say, get outperformed in 2023. The special elections, the Democrats beat the polls by 11 points. The Republican parties see the writing on the wall. They know it's over for them. It is crystal clear to everybody involved. And that's what makes this election coming up so insanely important. We're not talking about another Mitt Romney. We're not talking about another Liz Cheney that's going to do really abhorrent things, but things that aren't going to undermine the entire institution. The Republicans do not care anymore. This is like the last stand, the last hurrah for them. If they don't make this happen, right? If they're not able to undermine institutional norms, if they're not able to undermine the rule of law when it comes to these agencies, they know that when the Democrats come back into power, they're going to be able to just undo it. And so the Republicans want this to go to the court. They want these rules to go to the court, and they want them to be thrown out. And it really is mask off, because the Republican Party at this point doesn't really seem to care. There was this big question post Dobbs about, is there legitimacy in the court anymore? And I think the answer to that is clearly no. There's no legitimacy in the court. I personally had respect for Roberts to attempt to uphold rule of law, and that went out the window when he overturned the Colorado case. Not overturned, but when they made null and void the 14th Amendment for the Section 3 of the purposes there. They got rid of that section. So it's kind of like, how are you going to remove insurrectionists now? How do you preclude them from running? And I don't have any respect for them anymore. It's become very clear that they don't care about the legitimacy of the court. They care about stacking the court. Because if you guys don't know this already, in the Supreme Court, nobody has to follow their rulings. That's one of the things that was decided on in the court case Marbury versus Madison, was the Supreme Court has the right to rule on it. They don't have any enforcement mechanism, so they rely on lower courts. So the Republicans, they plan to stack the lower courts, which they've already done in the Fifth Circuit. Donald Trump has done throughout the United States by putting an absolute mega nut jobs into these positions to just undermine the rule of law, to uphold whatever the Supreme Court says. It's a scary day for, I don't think today is a scary day in the regard of like undermining democracy, but I think this goes to affirm that they don't care about rule of law. There's no ambiguity here. The law is crystal clear. It is unbelievably crystal clear. And they're going to do everything they can, no matter what, to try and undermine it.